There's just some movies. Hey everybody, what's going on? Today we're going to be talking about Naomi Watts' new movie, The Book of Henry. With instructions from her genius son's carefully crafted notebook, a single mother sets out to rescue a young girl from the hands of her abusive stepfather. First things first, I just have to come out and say that I'm really torn about how I feel about this movie. I can't come out and say that I loved it, but I really can't come out and say that it was bad either. I know that most of the big critics are ripping it to shreds and regular audiences think it's above average, at least according to everybody's favorite Rotten Tomatoes. I know that the crowd that I saw it with were kind of moved by it. I don't know if there were any tears, but I was hearing plenty of sniffles. What I can't decide is if that the stuff that worked outweighed the stuff that didn't. I can say that it will be a little hard to talk about this one without spoiling some big plot points, so I'll have to tread lightly here. When it came to what worked, the one thing I have to point out is the performances. Most of the main actors in this have been in other things that I really love. Naomi Watts, Jaden Lieberher, Jacob Tremblay, Sarah Silverman, and Dee Norris all do a really good job at telling the story through their acting. As a fan of all of them, this really wasn't a surprise. Whatever the scenes called for, serious, sad, or whatever, these actors pulled it off. Now, when it comes to just about everything else, this is where I begin to get unsure about things. When it comes to the overall plot and character motivations, there are some things that really work and some things that really don't. One thing that really worked was Henry's plan to save his friend from her stepfather, at least in theory. The overall execution is kind of hit or miss. Again, it's difficult to talk about without spoiling it. I guess I can say that the setup was way stronger and less predictable than the payoff. Speaking of predictability, I thought that the trailers and even the movie poster gave away a little bit too much about the movie. If you can avoid them, go ahead and do so. Another thing that was hit or miss was the movie's humor. Now there were some scenes that worked really well, such as Henry and his mom's work friend snipping at each other back and forth. While it was silly, it led to one of the better serious scenes later in the movie. What didn't work was that some humor was put in during some of the more serious scenes. In a movie about a young girl getting sexually abused, this really didn't fly with me. While the saving of Henry's friend is the main plot of the movie, another plot involves Henry having to basically be the grown-up and his mom being the irresponsible one. Long story short, she has to grow up and move on. I think that this is the part of the plot that I'm most unsure about. Again, some of it makes sense and really works well, and some of it falls flat. Lastly, I was a bit bothered that they tried to fit a love story into this movie. While I understand that it fits into the whole thing about the mom growing up and moving on, there was some things that happened during the movie that made it feel a little inappropriate. This is going to be one of those movies that's very polarizing. As far as recommending it, I'd say go ahead and check it out. This is one of those movies that you're going to have to decide for yourself if you think it's good or not. As always, thank you so much for watching. What did you think of The Book of Henry? Are you on the fence about it as much as I am? Feel free to comment out down in the section below. But remember, it's only just one guy's opinion. I'm Gino Reynolds from The Real Gino. Till next time.